Welcome back to the Balance Sheet, where we talk about all things in the world of women's wrestling. I'm one of your co-hosts, King Ajar,
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Billy.
and we are coming to you this week with a lot to recap. In terms of just in-ring activity, we had a lot of movement in the world of women's wrestling from WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor. We also had a camp out there sponsored by one of the biggest stars in women's wrestling for the future generations. We also have what we believe is going to be upcoming storylines involving, some of the biggest stars, Liv Morgan, Mercedes Moné. We'll get to Mercedes later. You starting to see a lot of storylines being cultivated. And I think at the beginning of next year, we're going to get a lot of flushing out of where some of these characters are going to go. We also had an amazing NXT card that had
Yep.
two really good women's matches and setting up them for the future. So we're going to start right at WWE Monday Night Raw, 10,000 people, give or take, in Arizona. And the main event angle was so the main event, I'll set the stage here, was Charlexa against Riho. And what I think is amazing is that these two teams were named by the internet and they have gone with these names, right? Like the wrestlers themselves call themselves these names. These are not names they came up with, right? Because WWE name was Allies of Convenience, but that
Right.
didn't really seem to stick. So Charlexa versus Rio. This was the main event match. They got about 17 minutes. And it was basically set up at the beginning of the show where Rio came out to talk about how they want the Kabuki Warriors after winning War Games. Charlexa comes out and says, "Oh, wait a minute. You got to get to the back of the line. We haven't got our rematch." So then they're like, "Well, why don't we fight?" So they had a match, and they were having, I thought, a hell of a match. But again, I want to give this woman a lot of praise here because she gets a lot of flack for not being the worker that everybody else is. But Alexa Bliss at War Games and then on this main event match at Raw was the best performer in both of those matches. So I just want to point that out there. And the match was going very well, but in typical WWE fashion, they had the Kabuki Warriors interrupt, beat everybody down. Bailey and Lyra's music hit. They come out. They're fighting. And if I'm not mistaken, Lash and Nia were not on this show, right?
Correct.
They were not. Okay, so they're part of the story, but they were not on Raw. They were beating everybody up. And then, sorry, Bailey and Lyra came in to save Charlexa and Rio. They were fighting the Kabuki Warriors. And then out of nowhere comes Liv Morgan through the crowd, beats up, I think she beat up Lyra on the announce table, beat up, I think it might have been Asuka. Then Roxanne and Raquel jump in the ring, beat everybody up, lay them out. Now you have the tension. Roxanne picks up the tag belt, looking at it. She realizes Liv is right there. I'm going to give it to Liv because Liv, you never really lost the tag belt and you're really the leader of Judgment Day. Liv took the belt and said, "No, this is for you and Roxanne, or you and Raquel now. I'm going to go after the women's title," which you saw earlier in the night where she had the stare down with Stephanie Becerra. And then she raised Roxanne and Raquel's hands, and it kind of cemented the Judgment Day as back in business.
Yep.
And as Roxanne and Raquel being the team that's going to go after the tag belt, Liv going after the singles title. So it's going to be the Judgment Day trying to get all the gold back, which they've always had a lot of gold. So this was the main event angle. It was a very hot angle. Everybody seemed to love it. There was no real complaints. And for the first time, I think, and I don't, I'm trying to be careful here, but I believe that no two women are more responsible for making the tag belts important like the COVID era golden role models. But I think we all knew that the tag belts in that storyline was a plot device for their singles feud. This is
Mhm.
the first time I think the tag belts feel important with legitimate tag teams all vying for it. Like it's not a storyline between two women. Now you can make the case, well, Asuka and Kyrie are going to break up. That's true, but I feel like when I watch this, that all of these women want the tag belts more than they want a singles title.
I think we had some good run uh with Bianca, both with Jade and Naomi, but maybe the tag belt seemed more unattainable there too because that team was so like untouchable for a
Mm-hmm.
minute there. I hear what you're saying though, is like it feels like this may be the first time that it feels like any one of four or five different you they've done a very poor job over the years. Every time the tag belts have a good and we kind of always know who's going to beat them and
I
when.
agree. Mm-hmm.
This is the most open it's felt where it's like didn't think Charlexa was going to lose them. A, neither did you.
No.
Don't know when Kabuki Warriors are going to lose them. They could lose them next week. They could lose them next month. And honestly, I don't know who they'd lose them to. It could be Roxanne or Raquel. That's kind of, but that's heel to heel, right? Like, so I kind of get what you're saying there. This is the deepest the tag division has felt. They haven't broke up Charlexa, nor should they right now. Great move, signaling that Liv does not want to be in a tag team. I think that Judgment Day breakup is gonna so heavier as a good storyline if they coexist for 3, 4, 5 months, right? Or even 2 months. Um, Obviously Finn and Roxanne have some difference of opinion from Liv and Dom, but them kind of having some success up front, I think, is going to make that story tell a little bit better. But no,
I
the
will.
the women's tag titles are in a really good spot right now for sure.
So you have a really good perspective on the importance of Liv Morgan, and I'm going to hand you the baton. But I have one thing to say. I think that I don't know if this is a failure of WWE or they should be praised for this. So I'm torn here. On one hand, I don't think the four singles titles that WWE has for the women have felt less important. I think Stephanie's title, Jade's title, Chelsea's title, and Maxine's title all to me are at a low point of importance. One, because the people chasing them now, I know Liv is now entering the fold, and I think that will bring importance back up to that. But the IC title is caught up in a conspiracy theory lawsuit thing. The US title is really being propped up for a lucha, like a AAA mixed tag feud thing. And the Jade title is just Jade's gonna squash everybody, it seems like, until Bianca comes back, right? So when I look at the tag belts, all the top women are vying for this hardware. And so for the first time, I think the tag titles could main event the pay-per-view for the women, not the singles titles.
Yeah, they're much closer to main eventing a pay per view with the tag titles. That's the right way to put it. And it's no offense to the four women that hold singles belts, but they're not. It's kind of we kind of SmackDown's writers a couple weeks ago, and it's a little bit of everything with all four of those titles. It's like the story. Where's the in ring story? Where's the I want to be the best, and that belt proves I'm the best, right? Like we're not really getting that. Um, I very much tried to have Nikki Bella's back since she's been back. I think she's putting in hard work and all that. You know, she got a title shot just by backstabbing her friend or partner. She didn't win it. She didn't win a single match on WWE TV.
No,
They're not even building anyone up who we would reasonably think is going to beat Jade, right? Like, um, they're not even working on who could beat Jade.
no.
They're Stephanie has some life because Liv, stared her down. And we all believed Liv could beat Stephanie, um, even as highly regarded as Stephanie is. So we're off to a better direction there. And the Maxine thing is, guys, look, Maxine's going to hold that belt for defended, and then she's going to lose the belt. I mean, that's they're not going to have Maxine go on a open challenge run winning that belt. And as much as I think Becky's intentions might be well placed to give Maxine the bump, the rub, two things you can't elevate someone unless kind of two things happen. What's going to happen now that she's champion, and will she be on TV after she loses it, right? Um so far they're proving that to be not great because they're not doing anything to tell us Maxine as champion is she going to make a pay-per-view as champion? Would you bet that she would?
Yeah, unless it's against Becky, no.
Right.
Right? Unless it's Becky getting her rematch, no. And I saw the vignette that she's doing in the dungeon with Natty, and that was good. That was like, oh, she's serious now. She's gonna, be a more serious competitor, and she's not to be messed with. And I get all that, but I again, all of the most important women in the WWE are fighting for the tag belt, except for Stephanie Bakur and Jade. Right?
Yeah.
Those are the only two that are not, because even we didn't even talk about Lash Legend and how she's looked, and she's looked amazing since they called her up, and Nia Jax, they look dominant. And Lash Legend is fighting Alexa Bliss on SmackDown, and honestly, and I love Alexa Bliss, it should be a squash. Like, Lash should kill her. Like,
Yeah.
Alexa should get a couple of punches in, but Lash should kill her because they're trying to sell Lash as this super, like, they're almost setting me up to believe Lash is going to be the one who beats Jade. Like, if that's what they're trying to do long term, I need to see her kill Alexa Bliss. Like, literally, Alexa fights hard but loses because Lash has laid everybody out. She's laid out Io and Rhea and Charlotte and Alexa and Asuka and Kyrie, and you know she's been on fire. So I don't think 5 foot Alexa Bliss even beating Lash is remotely realistic, and I think Lash should dominate her, and they should say she just beat a 6-time women's world champion in 4 minutes, and it's
Yeah,
okay.
I think Lash has so much upside, and I like the way they're presenting her so far. Real quick on Maxine, I did get some feedback from a listener who were thought I was overly negative on the Maxine thing, and we are here to support the women. It's really more of a critique to WWE, and this is my example. I absolutely believe that Maxine could be presented as someone who wins matches. They're not doing it though. And I'll give you an example, and it's not about an AEW WWE thing. Harley Cameron was exactly Maxine Dupree. And the only way AEW got Harley not just over as an act, but over as a wrestler is by having her wrestle. And every dungeon vignette that Maxine does is a great setup for her to be a wrestler, but they are going to have to give her in-ring time, holding her own against other known and developed women's wrestlers for the crowd to believe it. Harley is in a tag team that beat Athena and Mercedes. Harley wrestled Athena one-on-one, and none of that is seen as like they weren't comedy matches.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't have been seen as flukes if Harley won, because they've put in the ring time, and she spent a lot of time in the ring on TV. And if they want Maxine to get over as an in-ring performer, it will take commitment to letting her wrestle on Raw and beating someone. So the vignettes are a start, but I need match time. I think if they want to respect Maxine as a champion, she needs match time. And frankly, Chelsea on the other side barely gets match time. So it's hard to think that they're going to actually do it. And it's a criticism of them, not her.
They're both presented as like Chelsea is a comedy act who can, she can, she can really wrestle, but she's found her niche as her niche as a comedy act. But she's entertaining. She has a place on TV. She's great in AAA as a heel. So okay, and look, I love Julia, but they weren't necessarily lighting the world on fire with her presentation either. So with Maxine, before we get to your Liv take, I think Maxine is somebody they could have, like you said, built up to the title match where she wins the match and then people are like, oh, it's a fluke. And then she wins 5 matches, and now people start to be like, well, we got to take her seriously. And I believe they needed to give Maxine like a killer finishing move that is like if Maxine had the female RKO where she can just hit you with it and then she wins the match, it's like she's always a threat. And they didn't really do that with Maxine, but I understand why. I understand why that Becky put her over because I think that's Becky saying, "Well, I put women over, and I'm for bringing up the new generation." But I don't know if the story fits the way everybody wants the story to fit. So, to your point, I hope we get a serious Maxine who has title defenses, who's on pay-per-views. But if she just fights Becky again and loses, then it was a nothing. It was for a moment, which most of what WWE does now seems like it's for the moment.
Kind of like the Nikki Cross when she won the title, right? They gave it to her, she
Mm-hmm.
had it, and then it pretty quickly went away, right?
Yeah, she lost it the next
And
pay per
Nikki
view.
Cross is a very good wrestler. They've just
Yeah,
they haven't presented her that way in a long time.
yeah, and she won it as the Hurricane, right? Like the Hurricane
Yeah.
female. So your Liv Morgan take.
Yeah, so Liv Morgan, how we missed you. I think we were all bummed when she went out. We knew how good she is. If you don't think WWE loves Liv Morgan, you are sadly mistaken. I mean, she was the first ever winner of the
Crown Jewel.
uh, Crown Jewel title. Um, I think that there is an argument to be made that Liv Morgan is the most important women's wrestler um, kind of piece on a show from a connective tissue standpoint. And let me explain that. Your top main event people are usually lone wolf, one friend type people, right? Like no one understands Rhea except for Io, right? But she doesn't have a lot of friends. Um, Jade doesn't have a lot of friends. Um, Tony Storm has one friend. Mercedes Moné has no friends. Chris Statlander has one friend. And then if you think back to men's wrestling in the Attitude Era, Stone Cold had no friends, right? And then the other version of a top champion is someone who leads a group. And that was The Rock when he was first champion, and he headed up the corporation, and Triple
Yeah.
H headed up DX. And I think Liv is the best version of that top champion that can like lead a group. And what that does is gives you a ton of storytelling devices. Um, and so the reason I say connective tissue is the first Monday Night Raw, she's back. We get back to a women's division where all these people are feuding and it feels like a whole universe again. And she's able to go stare down the champion one on one. She's got her faction. She's part of the tag thing, but kind of handed it over to her faction to lead. I mean, they really, really trust her. And the way they write for her makes the whole women's division better. So I think, you know, people who have been good in this role in the past are, Bailey was very good in this role in damage control. On the WWE or on the AEW side, it's like Willow and Harley are kind of good in this role, but not nearly at the level that Liv is. It's like that, hey, these people talk to these people because of this person in the middle, and Liv is that person in the middle. And it just really, really drives good stories. I think the WWE writers know how to write for Liv, and somehow it makes the tent bigger. So I'm very, very excited to have her back. I don't think it's a coincidence that the first Raw she's back had the most women's writing representation, multiple storylines that could go multiple different directions. I think they see her at that tip top and they have an easier time writing her character than maybe some of the other women at the very top. And so um, we really, as a division, are going to benefit from her being back.
So did you feel this way about Rhea Ripley when she was in Judgment Day?
No, not for the women. When Rhea Ripley was in Judgment Day, Rhea Ripley was a very good connective piece, but they brought just as many men, if not more men, into that tent than they did women. And Liv, once they've gotten away from the Dom storyline love angle, I mean, Dom's obviously still a big part of it within Judgment Day, but Liv, I think they're doing a better job of the women's locker room being part of what it is than they did when it was Rhea, and that's none of that was Rhea's fault, and so it's a compliment to Liv, but it's also a hey, WWE understands how to write for this woman and bring other people in. Um,
You
that
know,
they in a way they didn't do.
somebody had a really good idea online about Liv, Roxanne, and Raquel being the new Shield, the female Shield, right? The only thing is, there's going to be a lot of argument online as who's going to be Roman Reigns, right? Because you're going to have Roxanne's fans say, well, of course it's going to be Roxanne, and then there's going to be Liv's fans like, well, no, Liv is the bigger star currently,
Liv
and
is
then
clearly Roman Reigns in that, and Roxanne is Seth, and that's even though I kind of poo
and
poo Seth,
Raquel is
I'm not the biggest Seth fan in the world, but I mean Raquel. If Raquel got booked like Seth over the next 10 years, she's had a pretty damn good career, right? So
Yeah, so there was the female Shield. There's a bunch of different options with those three women. You could do the Freebirds, they win the tag belts, but you can get any two out of three, or Freebirds / New Day, I guess. I would hope. I think the best use of those three. I love the Stephanie Liv feud. I think Stephanie desperately needs that feud. But I wouldn't mind seeing Liv get the IC title, Raquel and Roxanne get the tag belts, and they have those three belts. And we can then get the Becky Stephanie feud, which seems like it's inevitable, or Rhea Stephanie, or whatever they're going to do. But I just think that Liv is probably, I think you probably hit the correct phrase. When I think of importance, I think Liv might be the most important women in the division. She's not the biggest star, right? Because that's Rhea Ripley, but she's not that far behind Rhea Ripley either. It's not
right.
like Rhea is like Stone Cold and Liv is Triple H in 1998, right? Where there was a gap. Like Liv Morgan has her own accolades. Liv has endorsement deals, and Liv is in movies, and Liv is very social media friendly and breaks the internet every time she has a outfit or she dresses like stripped Christina Aguilera. Like she's there in Rhea's like world. So it's not a big statement to say she's more important because Rhea needs a joker. And I know right now her joker is Io because she can't beat Io. She's beaten Liv. But there's so much more history with Rhea and Liv than there is Rhea and Io. And after Rhea beats Io, what's the story? Right? Like that's the story right now is you can't beat her. You can't beat her. But once you beat her, then the story's kind of done. But Rhea and Liv have so much more tissue connecting because there's a boyfriend. There's a world title. there's a faction. You know, essentially, Judgment Day kicked Rhea out for Liv. So there's that story. So I think that Liv
What
being back is great.
what if how kind of badass and in a way that's very rarely been written for women would it be if Liv strategizes Finn, and when we all think that Finn and Roxanne are going to break off because they're against Liv, how cool would it be if Roxanne's actually on Liv's side and they just boot Finn's ass out, right? And Liv is truly the dominant member of the faction, and we do get a run where Liv, Roxanne, and Raquel kind of dominate for a little while. That would show Liv to be this heightened character in a
Mm-hmm.
way women are rarely written for, have been in the past. Um, I did think Roxanne was going to be the next IC champion, but that main event angle made it much more seem like she's got Liv's blessing to go try to get those tag belts back. So I hope Maxine dropping just back to Becky or whatnot. I don't know, but I was excited. It's kind of you can redo the whole landscape in December. December is always kind of a quiet time for WWE as they kind of reshift the gears for Royal Rumble. Um, and it seems like we'll get 4 or 5 weeks of TV that kind of might kind of alter the landscape. I have no idea who's winning Royal Rumble, if I'm being honest. Probably, I could very much see it being Becky, Stephanie match. If Bianca's back, no one would argue it being her. The Cena way, right? Just at this point, she's not back yet. Have her show up on Royal Rumble and win that match, right?
I,
Like,
I, I, I'm almost confident that if now Bianca on her Instagram, she was taking questions. She said she's getting surgery now on her fingers. So I guess this whole time she's tried to get it healed and it didn't work. And she's
yeah,
getting surgery. That probably means they're gonna get like a plate put in there or something. Bianca winning it makes the most sense to me. Liv winning could be good, right? Like Liv
yeah.
winning could be good. Rhea winning is obviously a possibility. Becky winning is a possibility. And someone threw it out there. Someone was like, is it so far fetched? And I know you're probably gonna hate this one. At some point, Alexa beats Stephanie. Charlotte wins the Rumble as the only three-time Rumble winner, and she gets her fight match against Alexa at WrestleMania.
I just don't think Alexa, Charlotte, they have a better story than any other women could have
Without a title.
without a title,
Yeah,
right?
I would agree with that.
So the point, I'm not saying that they can't have a singles match at Mania, but if they're fighting for the title, how do you get Stephanie,
Mm.
Becky, Rhea, Io on the card?
I,
Rhea and Io
it
have a story without a title, but it just I think it's much easier to sell Alexa Charlotte without the title.
the two most compelling women's stories are Rhea Io, and then on the other end Charlotte Alexa, and neither of them not only don't need a title, they should not have a title because I, if Charlotte and Alexa to me without a title would actually feel better to me than with a title because it would feel like a real blood feud because this is friendship and it's been broken. And it's not like Naomi Jade was one thing because of the car and the Bianca involvement and all that. But with the way Alexa Bliss has that character of the dark side and how almost she sucked Charlotte in to become her best friend and then turn on her. I think it could cement Charlotte as a real top tier babyface once she gets over and beats Alexa. And
And
I would
only if
like,
there's no title involved. Because if
yeah, I
there's a
would.
title involved, it'll give PTSD on. Of course, Charlotte's getting the title.
I think Charlotte, Alexa, Rhea, Io should not have belts at WrestleMania. If I was booking the show, neither of those matches would have titles because legitimately, they're the two best stories the WWE has, and they don't need titles. And again, the people
Are
make the title. The titles shouldn't make the people. And I've always felt like some of my favorite feuds in wrestling history didn't have titles. Like, what was Undertaker, Shawn Michaels? They didn't have titles. Like the back-to-back WrestleMania matches. One of my
right.
favorite feuds as a kid, very invested in it, was Jake Roberts and Ravishing Rick Rude. That did not have a title. It was about a wife, right? It was about the disrespect of Cheryl Roberts. I think feuds like that are great. Rick Martel, Jake Roberts, where he blinded Jake Roberts. Like, I don't think you need a
Love that
title.
feud.
I don't think you need a title belt for every single big feud. So yeah, I would stay away from Charlotte Alexa being in the world title picture. I think that their breakup has to be personal. They need to get promo time and all that. But to your point, the Royal Rumble for the first time, I don't know who's going to win, and I think that's a good thing for us.
Yeah.
Um,
Real quick, are you booking WrestleMania? Because it looks like your women's night one idea has a little bit of life, right? The way
it
that they're
does.
marketing it.
It,
Yeah.
it does, and all the women get their own individual vignettes. And I the only reason I came up, like I thought about that idea, is because, like I said, the people who work in television, the Netflix people, the CW people, I don't know. SmackDown's been so down this year in terms of the ratings. I don't even know who's driving, the ratings, but I think the women, by and large, now, I don't think it's a big secret anymore in the office that most of the ratings movers are women. And the reason I say that is, oh, by the way, who main evented Raw this week? Roman Reigns isn't around. Now they're going back to the women, right? They built that whole show around Liv Morgan. And then on SmackDown, Alexa, Asuka, they kind of put in that 9 o'clock, the hour changing window. And I look at NXT, the Iron Survivor match, and we're going to talk about that here right now. And I look at just how the women feel more important as a collective. Like, there is no singular women bigger than Roman Reigns, but honestly, how much bigger in today's wrestling is Roman Reigns than Rhea Ripley? Like, if he's bigger than her as a star, is he bigger by what, 5%?
Right.
Like, it's not the gap
So
between Stone Cold and Trish Stratus, right? It's very close.
so part of me says, of course, this will happen because of everything you just laid out. My one thing is they still have a hard time fully admitting that the men as a division or the women as a division is much better than the men. We're not getting women's main events on pay-per-views. We haven't, right? Um, and I'm just going to be honest. I will give Triple H props if he does this, and here's why. The women's event to bottom is going to so thoroughly flog the men's night that you will be facing questions on Monday that it is clearly a women's run division. That's not a spoil. That's not what does dummy say? That's a spoiler alert, not a prediction,
Yeah.
because
That's not a prediction, it's a spoiler. Yeah.
the men have a really good card. Main event could be a good match. Second match could be a good match. They're gonna force, dude we don't talk about on there, right?
They're gonna
Probably
force
against Gunther,
Logan Paul,
Logan Paul, Brock,
Jey Uso.
Jey Uso. The women, the best card this year was Evolution in WWE, and it's
Yes.
not it's not very close. So the women are going to go out there. I would much rather wrestle in front of the Saturday crowd than the Sunday crowd. Just period, right? You're going to have fresher people. Everyone there can party their ass off. They can keep drinking all through the night. Half that Mania crowd on Sunday probably has somewhere to be on Monday, right? So people not only get antsy as it gets later, but they probably stop having a good time and start looking at their watch. So the Saturday crowd's going to be hotter and better based on history, but they won't put the men on Saturday because then it would look like the women are more important from the get. So the women will get the better crowd. Number two, 6 matches each. The women have a significantly better chance of having 6 very good matches with heat and energy. And the men are going to have Jey Uso and other people that are not going to wrestle as good of matches. So get to Monday and you'll look and you'll be like, wow, the women's night was so much higher quality than the men,
So
there'll be a reckoning on that.
so we come from a position of bias in this conversation, right? We do a podcast about women's wrestling. So people who listen to this who aren't regular listeners, they might have picked us up for the first time. They're probably like, okay, these guys they drink all the women are better than the men's wrestling Kool-Aid, right? And we do, right? Like that's why we do this podcast. So we're not hiding that fact. But I think the most telling thing about what you just said and why I believe it's the truth is there are accounts, and I'm not going to go through them, but there are accounts on Twitter that are, they're called wrestling writers. And I'm not talking about the old guys who I don't care about. I'm not talking about the guys who used to work in TV 20, 30 years ago and are useless at this point. But there are a lot of like writers today who do say that the women's product clearly is better. Like when they talk about Evolution being the best show, they talk about the three-way at Mania being the best women's match, and they really talk about AJ Lee's return as the kind of watershed, remember where you were moment of WWE this year, right? Like her return, the three-way
Yep.
match, and then Evolution. And then again on commentary, they tell you Rhea Ripley's the biggest star, and then they tell you Io is the best wrestler. And Triple H says Rhea and Io are clearly above everybody else. Like, for every one guy who's good, 5 women are good. Like, it's not. We're trying to be. We're not a DEI, podcast. We don't do this because we're talking about we want to be equal. Like, I think truly, this is the first time in my life since the Minami Toyota All Japan days that I could definitively say the women of the collective are just better performers than the men. I'm not
That's what
talking. I'm not talking about, like, because when people hear that, they're gonna think it's like when I made a comment on Twitter once that I enjoy watching the WNBA more when Caitlin Clark was playing than the NBA. I didn't mean that I think Caitlin Clark is going to, in a one-on-one match, even score a point against the worst male basketball player on the bench, because there are physical advantages that you can't account for. But in wrestling is theater. It's not just about raw athletics and who's better at this game. The way the women use themselves as storytelling devices, because they don't just rely on the spots and the stunts and the cinema. They look more realistic when they fight each other. Like, it looks more like a fight at this point. They are more captivating to me because they have more of an intensity to them. Like that
yeah.
main event angle I saw, none of those women were checking the box and going through motions. They were all like trying to stick out. When I watched the War Games men's match, I feel like I have seen that match the last 10 years of my life, which is it's a Paul Heyman production. You're going to kick out of 47 finishing moves, and there's going to be this guy who interferes to cause the win. And that's the
Yep.
same plot device I've gotten over and over and over and over again. And every Roman Reigns match is the same to me. It's the
Yep.
same match. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from that lens.
Yeah, and just to double click on that real quick, the podcast is about the fact that women have been just as good as the men, if not better, for a while and aren't getting paid due, weren't getting
Mm-hmm.
the spot on the card to match their due, weren't getting the respect in print to match their due, weren't getting the respect in the office and in Gorilla to match their due. And I'm happy to say that over the 18 months or so that we've been doing this podcast, women, the money is up. Spot on the cards, a lot of work to do there still. WWE hasn't main evented the women enough on pay-per-view, in my opinion. AEW hasn't done it at all, so shame on them. But around the wrestling world, we've got some better respect as far as that's concerned. ROH main events Athena all the time, which we'll talk about. Mercedes is main evented over men on many of different uh, banner and promotion over the last year and a half. Respect in print, I think, is up. To your point, any journalist
Mm-hmm.
that's actually paying attention has been writing about how women have absolutely carried wrestling in 2025, and respect behind the scenes is up. At least in a way that they're talking about it. To your point, Triple H has said the women are better than have been better than the men. On that behind the scenes show they have, Tony Khan is effusive in his praise of his women in all of the scrums that they do. He's investing in women more, which we'll talk about from a roster expansion standpoint. Um, I need more respect on the card from him on main eventing when they should, but in the 18 months we've been doing this podcast, women have continued to earn and take their share as they deserve. Um, so we are seeing progress. I think one, it's not going to slow down anytime soon because NXT, the women are like, if 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 the women in WWE are a nose ahead of the men, the women in NXT are 6 laps ahead of the men in NXT.
Yeah.
So I don't see anything changing that for the future. So if this WrestleMania goes down the way we think, on Monday, Triple H is left with, I have a top of card men's division, no middle card, no undercard, and the rest of my show is run by women because that's what the better product is. And oh, by the way, in my minor leagues, I've got almost no men coming up. You got Obafemi, I think, is going to be a huge asset on the main roster. I think Trick could be
Jo-
very, very good.
uh,
Um,
I think Javon Evans is gonna be. He's gonna be the
Javon
guy.
Evans for sure,
He's gonna be the
but
guy.
they're going to need the men need to spend the next 2 or 3 years getting out of the 40s division and letting some of these guys in their 20s and even 30s shine because relying on John Cena is going away next week.
Yeah.
Relying on the Brock Lesnar's of the world for many reasons is stupid. Um, but even beyond all the baggage, I don't think these matchups we've seen a bunch of different ways is as exciting anymore as
I
they
mean,
all think.
it's clear cut that Braun Breaker is the guy they're hitching their
For sure he
wagon to,
is.
right? They're hitching their wagon to him, and that's okay. But if I was starting a wrestling company and I got to pick, Braun Breaker on one side to start my company or Rhea Ripley, I'm going to take Rhea Ripley, and I think that
100%.
like that's where I'm going with this. Like, yeah, it's good. They're pushing Braun. They clearly are behind him. They need him to be a big deal because they certainly need, like you said, somebody under the age of 35 to be a big deal on the men's side. But the women have so many women under 35. Um, and I know people are gonna be like, well, but the women's age. No, like to me, the women just have more depth. They have bigger. There's a reason why when the women did their ad for Mania, it felt like such a bigger deal than when the men did theirs because the men's ad was the same names that we have seen literally for 4 years. People
Yeah.
forget Punk has been
10
back.
years.
Punk has been back in WWE now almost 3 years. Like it's not
Right.
like Punk showed up yesterday, right? Lesnar, I mean, it's just, the name we don't talk about. It's just a tired act at this point. Like, okay, enough is enough. Like, thank you for your service. We'll take it from here, kind of thing with him. Cody, I got to be honest. Like, I like Cody Rhodes. I think he's very good for what he is. But there's something missing with him as the champion compared to Roman Reigns. And, Roman Reigns is at that point in his life where he comes and goes anytime he wants, and you can't really get behind him because when you do, he's gone for 6 months and he has
You
stuff
know,
going on. So,
it kind of, we like to put the Booker hat on here and we don't do it for the men and we're not going to do it. But what I will say is this. If they're going to split up the nights and Triple H wants the men to hang with the women, he's going to have to do some outside of the box booking that he's not shown he's willing to do in a while. Because we just named a bunch of people who can put on good matches, right? Um, if you have Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Gunther, Javon Evans, Obafemi, Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams, Seth Rollins, um, at your disposal, you can put on a very good card, but they have not been putting on Cody Rhodes. They have not been putting on good cards lately. So if the women keep up with the men, it will have them step up their game top to bottom in a way that they've not been able to do in 2025. It just has not happened.
yeah, I think I know why they push and promote Logan Paul a lot. He's a big deal in an influencer community. He has a following. He's has a drink that pays a lot of money to get on billboards and advertisements for WWE, and he is very athletic and he can do a lot of good stuff in the ring. Like, I'm not going to take that away from him, but as a character, it just doesn't work for me. Like, the what he's selling doesn't work. I need to see a little bit more of a Carmelo Hayes. I think Javon and Oba on the main roster could help them, but they have to get away from the always like. And again, the main event's going to be Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, and again, that's I've seen that match twice, and the second match it was theatrics, and I feel like it's obvious to me that like Reigns is going to win the match, and so okay, he wins. I don't know, like it's just after the bloodline thing kind of ended, they really have been directionless with the men. They haven't really had a hot story.
Yeah.
And I think Gunther is the best male wrestler on the main roster for sure, because if you look at the matches he's had in this tournament, he's been on fire and he's unbelievable. But they kind of neutered him a little bit with him losing to Jey Uso. And Jey Uso is another one because you can't take a guy who sells that much merchandise and gets that kind of reaction out of your card. But I'd rather see a Carmelo Hayes match than Jey Uso. But
Gun, Gun,
you
Gunther's
know,
still getting you tapped out chance, so that was not good because you want him to be a destroyer, and you'd probably hope people forget that he tapped out to Jey Uso. All right, pivoting. I think it makes sense. We're gonna get to Mercedes Moné had a really really big match this week that we're gonna want to talk about, but I think it makes sense to go to NXT. We were
mm-hmm.
talking about how strong that women's division is. That is clearly on display with the match they had last night, the Iron Survivor match. Um, Kalani Jordan versus Lola Vice versus Jordan Gray versus Sol Ruka versus Kendall Gray. And then they had Tatum Paxley versus Izzy Dame also on that card. But two really enjoyable matches. I will just throw out there that I thought that was my favorite Iron Survivor match that they've done. I thought it was the best one. What did you think of the match?
Yeah, so the Iron Survivor match is a concept that it's basically who scores the most falls in 25 minutes. And if you get DQ'd, you go to a penalty box. So in the 90 seconds, you can't be pinned, but you can't get a pinfall. And so there's some strategy involved in these type of matches where, hypothetically, if this was real, you get three pinfalls quickly, and then you get yourself disqualified and you lose a fall, but then you stay in 90 seconds so you can't lose anymore, right? Like there's a strategy involved to this. So, okay, my thoughts. This was the best display of how deep the NXT roster really is with women because you don't have Blake Monroe in this match, and you don't have JC Jane, and you don't have um oh my goodness, how am I missing her? Wow. Not JC Jane is one, and then the other one is, I guess, Blake Monroe is another. And I'm trying to think, there's another.
Fallon.
Fallon is there, Zara. Like there's a lot of women who aren't. Oh, Jada Parker. That's what I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Jada Parker was not in this match. So this was really good because it felt important the way that they structured the match. Like it felt like a sprint to the finish, and everybody was trying to beat each other. And everybody's goal, it felt like, hey, we got to win this thing. This is a big deal to get the title match at um, New Year's Evil. And I loved it because everybody had two falls, and then Kendall ends up winning it with the third fall, right? So it was like, it felt real sudden death ish. All of the women worked very, very hard. It's a very fun match. I highly recommend everybody to watch it. My opinion is, again, and I'm very biased here. I understand why they went with Kendall Gray. John Cena picked her. They're clearly positioning her to be like the next female Kurt Angle. I get all that. But man, I gotta see Lola Vice win this thing at some point. Like they keep teasing Lola Vice and they don't pull the trigger. And I think part of that is because her importance is more in AAA than it is in NXT. But I'm such a big Lola Vice fan, and I really like her improvement, and I wanted to see her win. That was my hope that she won this match. Um, Sol Roca is going to be a big star, and Sol Roca is on Saturday night's main event. She is fighting Bailey,
Yep.
so that's a match I'm really looking forward to. Like I said, man, Kendall Gray, they're going to attach the rocket to her. I think she's winning the title on the January pay per view. I think she's beating JC Jane.
Yeah, I think this was a showcase of depth. You have five women in the match. Lola Vice absolutely could have won. No one would have blinked. Soul absolutely could have won. No one would have blinked. Jordan Grace absolutely could have won, and everyone would have been like, finally, they've got her winning a big moment in NXT. Kalani could have won, and everyone would have been like, of course Kalani won. She's one of the heir apparents. And then Kendall, the new kid on the block, at least for NXT, wins. Um, I got to tell you, there's a version of the world where Kendall Gray um, goes up to main roster and has like a Kurt Angle, Bianca type rookie year. She's really, really good. She does the little things so well, super fluid, in and out of the ropes, submissions and all that. The one clip that kind of went viral on X this week was from her other match where she was running the ropes, selling her arm while she was running the ropes. And it's just something like that with such a young performer that stands out and has you kind of just go, oh man, this one, she has it. So I think the women are going to continue to dominate in years future, and women's wrestling is as healthy as it's ever been. I think the WWE roster is as good as it's ever been. I think the AEW roster is as good as it's ever been and just got stronger. We'll talk about. And it's not even like the indie cupboard is bare now. You've got some women doing some really incredible stuff out there on the indies. But yeah, WWE's got, their Evolve champion looking main roster ready. I mean, and the woman she won it from, Callie Armstrong, was someone who is ready for big things too. They didn't push her as hard as they pushed Kendall. Um, but she could show up on NXT regularly and start creating some damage. So great match, really, really fun match, highly rewatchable, had an air of sudden, had an
Yeah.
urgency to it that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and I think the story of everybody being at two was good. What I hate about some of those matches historically is they're just afraid to pin people. So it's like somebody wins 1-0. Like if you remember the one that Julia won, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like it didn't feel the same way that this match felt. And I loved that all of the women, everybody beat everybody. And on this night, Kendall was just a better performer by a little bit, but it didn't take away from the other four women in the match. Like all four of them, I thought came out looking really, really good. I think all of these five women will be very big pieces on the main roster at some point. I mean, of the five, honestly, the one I worry about the most is Grace.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the one I worry about the most because she's not a WWE groomed product. And she's, I mean, not to use age as a discriminating factor, but like she is more of a veteran than all of these other women. And these other women are fresh faces, right? Like
she was
Ken,
number 2 in PWI in 2024. So, I mean, she's having trouble keeping that level of footing. I agree.
yeah. So, but yeah,
Real quick,
go ahead.
one nitpick, and it's not to nitpick the performer, but the producers got to kind of pay attention to what they're doing, and especially because she's such a high flyer. I didn't like them going after Soul's knee and leg as she's injured, and is she going to be okay? And then she hits some of the most high flying, soul snatchers and springboards that you've ever seen from her. Um, as a performer, I'd like to see some of her offense. If they're gonna do these leg based, storylines, she's got to have some offense that doesn't require springboards, like that. It just, why spend time on the leg if you're just gonna not have it be something, that had to be overcome?
Thoughts on Izzy versus Tatum Paxley? Kind of a, the best friend turns on each other match. Obviously, the person who just turned usually wins the first matches of these kind. I thought that they had a solid outing. It was fun, and
Yep.
I think the feud's going to continue. So, Izzy won. She should win, and that's kind of my review of the match. But I thought the match was pretty good.
I liked it. I liked it. I think Tatum's a really, really good performer. A very layered performer, very good in the ring, good facial expressions, selling, all that stuff. So, you know, is it a stretch to say that 12 of these women or more could already just be on Raw next week and they would hang? Like, how many NXT women would be ready for a spot in the Royal Rumble right now? More than ever, right? We usually
Oh
have a
yeah,
short list of,
they could have 40 women in the Royal Rumble this year, but I think the thing that's interesting is you have all the women in that main event angle are going to be in the Royal Rumble. Flash Legend, Nia Jax are going to be in it. So right there you have 10 women, right? So that's 30%, 33% gone, just like that of the Royal Rumble, right? So you had the
yeah,
four main event teams on the Raw angle, Lash, Nia. Okay, that's 10 women. Obviously, Bianca returns at 11. You have AJ Lee, 12, Becky Lynch, 13, Natty, 14, Maxine
Julia,
Dupree, Julia, Maxine. That's 15 already. We haven't even got to
Chelsea.
any Chelsea, Kylie, um, uh, Meechin, BFAB.
Yeah, yeah, there's probably only 5 spots for NXT, but what I was saying was like you could give them half the Rumble and it would work, right? Like
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the
I
work
agree.
quality is that good.
I agree. And I think, if they were ever thinking of expanding a women's Royal Rumble to 40. But the only problem I have is those matches get way too messy. At like to me, 30 is a good number. And I think, to me, it's all about who agents these matches and which of the veteran women are going to kind of lead us through, because I think that Royal Rumble matches can either be really, really good or really, really bad. And it just depends on who agents it and who is if I were booking it, I would have Natty start at number one and have her kind of at least get us through to number 10
Yeah.
and go from there.
I think NXT, you have some obvious people that will be in it, right? Like, I think Kalani and Blake will obviously be in it. It'd be cool for them to do a battle royal with maybe the less obvious people in the roster for like a spot in the Royal Rumble. Um, you want to keep a couple of them as surprises, like Blake. Blake shouldn't even be in the battle royal, right? Like, because she's just like above that. But it would be a cool way for like a Kendall Gray or a Zarya even, or a Tatum Paxley to make their way into the Royal Rumble. Someone who it won't be as obvious that they're in it. So almost have them win their shot so people could be excited about it. NXT, man, it's some of the best women's wrestling we have out there. I just really
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed that match, and it's cool to see a match that's so good. You got Lola with a MMA background. You got Kendall Gray with a actual mat wrestling background. You have Kalani Jordan with a gymnastics. She's a product of the PC, right? Um, then you have Jordan, who came up like kind of the old school way through the indies and all that, and then Soul, kind of that same kind of created in a WWE ring in a lab. So kind of showcases all the different, you know, ways that they're getting talent down there now too. Um, anything else you want to add on NXT?
No, I think that NXT is the future. I think we saw the present on Monday Night Raw. I think the WWE is emphasizing the women as they should. And I think we're in for a really good Royal Rumble to WrestleMania season as it relates to the women. And I am not giving up hope on my idea of night one is just women. That advertisement got me maybe delusional, but when I saw it on my ESPN app thing, I'm like, oh, whoa, okay. Night one is just women and night two is just men. Could it
If you
be?
got if you got that one right, I would say that it might be your best dart throw yet. That would be a huge one to get right.
Yeah.
So I am excited to get into this Ring of Honor card. Um, I think Ring of Honor probably does the best job, along with NXT, of presenting the women as equals, where it doesn't even need to be said out loud. They're just given equal time, equal importance. Athena main events all the time, just like in NXT, the women main event all the time. Um, so what's funny is WWE and AEW, they have their flaws, even though they've got the women to main event, and then right under that, booked and owned by the same people, you've got a lot of those flaws fixed. But this Ring of Honor card was fantastic. We had Zeta Steel, Lila Gray on Zero Hour, and then on the main card, opening the show with a very good match was Deonna Purrazzo versus Billie Starks in a Pure Rules match to name the first women's ROH Women's Pure Rules champion. Um, we had Mercedes Moné versus Red Velvet for the TV ROH World TV Championship, and then main eventing we had Athena versus Persephone um, in the ROH Women's World Championship match. So open the card, close the card, really good match in the middle. I thought all three matches actually delivered. Let's start with what many saw as an upset and I guess the beginning of a downfall. A match I absolutely freaking love for reasons I'll be excited to explain in a minute. But Red Velvet defeated Mercedes Moné to become the first two-time ROH TV champion. Um, Really good match. They wrestled a couple weeks ago on Collision. This was kind of an extension of that. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought this match was really good. They have really good intense chemistry. These two, they seem to like it feels more like a fight when these
Yeah,
two hook up. I definitely thought Mercedes was going to lose this match. I did not think she was sticking around on Ring of Honor. I knew she was going to lose this match, and I think that Red Velvet is a perfect person to get the rub from beating a Mercedes and winning the title. I think the proof is in the pudding of the pop that Red Velvet got when she won the match. You know, people
huge
really
pop. Yep.
popped for it. I think people want to see Mercedes lose. I think we're getting to that point in the story where whether it's the 12 belts, whether it's holding that TBS title for almost 2 years, etc. You know, people are tired of her having all these belts and they want to see her lose. And that was always the point and the end game of this story. And you know, she's telling two simultaneous stories. One, her crash out is coming where she loses everything, and number two, she can't win the big one, right? Like that's also her story here is every time she goes after the big belt, she can't win it. And it's kind of an extension of her WWE story as Sasha Banks, where she could never defend her title and she could never, hold on to it. Like she could always win the title, but she couldn't defend it, which was a weird story. But okay, it's about a Ring of Honor. My thoughts are that Red Velvet absolutely is going to be a very big player in the AEW Ring of Honor division for years to come. I think that when you have a Mercedes Monet level talent, she's at her best when she can help put over the talent of the future, and Red Velvet is that. I think what I loved about this match is they did some new stuff that I have not seen. Like she went for the super lung blower, but it got reversed. Um, and I thought that was a really cool spot. Like I popped for that spot. But
Yeah.
again, these two for what did they get? 15 minutes?
14, 13, 50 or something like that.
Yeah, so they got 14 minutes, and I thought that they used all 14 minutes very well. It was very intense. It felt like a fight. It felt like Red Velvet was not gonna lose. Like she was never gonna give in, and no matter what Mercedes did to her, she was gonna win the match. And that's the story you want to tell. I thought that for $10 is what you pay for the whole month of Ring of Honor, the Honor Club as they call it. I thought this was as good a value as you can get for $10. You know, if you're a fan of just good wrestling, I thought they delivered on this card. And Ring of Honor, for a lot of those of us who have been watching Ring of Honor a long time, Ring of Honor was the promotion that kind of got us through the dark times
Yeah.
when WWE's main roster was, you know, nothing, and you
Yeah.
had the same matches. So yeah, I love
I
this match. I don't know where I'm gonna rank it at my end of the year, but I do think it's one of the better, in my opinion, it's one of the better Mercedes matches this year.
totally agree. I A couple of people have pointed out this is not an original thought by me, but it's pretty cool that over the last 2 weeks, Mercedes has put over Chris Statlander as the AEW Women's Champion, and then put over Red Velvet for Red to win this title back. Chris and Red Velvet are two of the original investments, really, that Tony Khan made in kind of young women's wrestlers who weren't established yet, right? They were two of the first women that didn't have any notoriety anywhere yet. Um, so it's pretty cool to see them get to this spot. And the pop was huge. All of the clips of her winning on social media are getting tons and tons and tons of views. Um, So it was that moment you build towards in wrestling. I do think it was one of my favorite Mercedes matches so far this year. The intensity is similar to like what those early Charlotte matches had, where the lockup you could just feel like there's like this fight, this desire to prove yourself as the best, which is my favorite type of wrestling. Um, I also love that Red beat her with study. You know, one of the greatest things about Sasha Banks or Mercedes Moné is not only is she, you know, one of the greatest wrestlers in the world, but the way her matches, she wins by out thinking and out studying her opponent. Red Velvet beat her by having the knowledge of what Sasha Banks and Mercedes Moné, not just Mercedes, but like going all the way back to Sasha Banks. Um, we've seen her many times over the years have the bank statement maker in, and as the opponent goes to the rope, she kicks off the rope, she rolls them over, and then she kind of re puts in the statement maker in the middle of the ring. And Red beat her to the ropes and used the ropes herself to kick over into a jackknife pinning combination. So it was like the student beat the master, which I thought was a really, really cool way um, to have her dethrone Mercedes, especially as someone who says, you know, I got into this with Mercedes being one of my idols that I looked up to. Um, I also just really enjoy the chemistry that they have because Red is probably is it weird to say that Red is the most Sasha Banks like wrestler that Mercedes has ever wrestled?
Mm, 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 mm.
I'm not saying she is, but the move set, the style, the size, the attitude. We always joke, could you imagine if Mercedes wrestled Sasha Banks? This is like kind of the closest you're going to get to that, right?
Let me think. Red Velvet. Okay, so women who have cited Mercedes as like a big influence.
But I'm just
Shit.
saying, even the body type and the
Yeah,
movement
body.
and the
Yeah, the
way she
body type and the
wrestles.
movement is accurate. Yeah, she. I mean, look, you know, if you were to have a movie about the story of Justine Mercedes Caster Varnado, you could make a case Red Velvet should play her in the lead role, right? Like you could make a case that Red Velvet, you know, from a look, you know, the look, the body type, the fluidity in the ring could play her, right? So yeah, I see that point of view.
I
I just think that these two, they're just certain two who hook up in wrestling and they just have instant chemistry, and these two come to mind. Even the first match they had, was it a couple of weeks ago? That was a really good
love that one
match.
too.
That was a really good
Yeah,
match. Yeah. I think this match was slightly better, but they were both good.
I love the finish of that match, obviously, but as a total match, this one was a better match. I could watch these two wrestle over and over and over again. I think their chemistry is fantastic, and this was my third, probably it's probably my third favorite Mercedes loss ever. Um, I think probably my most consistent, the one my you kind of quote me on it all the time. I always talk about ending a championship run the right way. Well, I mean, this wasn't a championship run. Mercedes never defended the belt, but um,
But she
if
paid homage to Sasha Banks.
yeah, that is kind of what happened. But I will say that this carried more weight usually than a no defense title loss usually does because all the 13 belts that she has, and um, this is my third favorite probably of her putting over that kind of um in a losing manner behind the Bailey match and the Bianca match. This is what heels are supposed to do in wrestling. It's why they exist. Um,
I am so on an island with my like, so I agree with your first two. Like I think Bailey is the obvious one and Bianca is the number two obvious. I actually think number three is not obvious, but it's obvious to me. And I think number three is losing to Becky at Hell in a Cell, because now I know she didn't lose the title, but her losing really set up her best storyline ever in WWE year to year, where she lost in a cage, won in a cage, and then ended up defending, where she could never do that either. Like, I just thought that losing to Becky actually gave her a great story arc for the whole next year, where we got a whole year of the best storytelling, the best character work she ever did in that company.
If
And
if
I like that one. That one
so,
be
I
my
won't.
number
I
three.
You've always called out what you think that one did, and I won't argue with you. It is a little different because she didn't lose the title. She should have lost the title. They should have had her win
Mm-hmm.
it at Clash of
Yes,
Champions.
that would have
But
been the perfect story.
if
Correct.
that's true, then that means that she's completely revitalized. Where Becky's at in a moment twice. Once by beating her in a great match, and then once by
Yeah.
losing. Well, really, the Clash match should get some credit there too, because that was a fantastic
I,
match that had
yeah,
great dueling chants. But yeah, the Hell in the Cell kind of um, did good for both women. The Bailey moment wouldn't have hit the next year if Sasha had won either the Clash or the Hell in a Cell match. So you're
I
right.
as much as I think Liv Morgan, we talked about Liv at the opening, will help Stephanie Vakor with what I believe up to this point has been an absolutely ice cold title run that Stephanie has had. I thought Becky's title run was equally ice cold going into the program with the blue haired Sasha Banks. And honestly, I thought Becky was only hot as that iteration of champion in the feud with Sasha Banks. I thought she was cold going into it. And I thought as soon as the Sasha feud ended, Sasha got hot with Bailey. And I thought Becky was cold again. And
Yeah.
so I think that, you can be pushed to the moon like Stephanie is and Becky was. But if you don't have the right adversary up across the ring from you, it doesn't really matter. It takes two to tango, as they say in wrestling. And honestly, I think Mercedes is a person that everybody should want to tango with to get the most out of their match or their feud. But yes, this match was great in the sense of what it was trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And we'll cover these other two Ring of Honor matches and then AEW, kind of what's going on there. We've got a big women's tag title match coming up on Wednesday. But since we're on the topic of Mercedes, she was on Collision last night. If you didn't catch the clips, she was very vicious in the ring. She kind of beat the crap out of Christopher Daniels, which I loved. She defended the TBS title against Layla Gray, who did seem to get hurt in the match. So prayers up to Layla. Hopefully that was just a tweak of the knee and not like a major thing. Um, and then Mercedes was kind of unhinged after the match and stole Shivani's headset, screamed into it. It was honestly like a top five favorite out of ring moment for me ever. And I tweeted that, and I'm not a big account, but my phone's buzzing while we're on this thing, and I've got like um 250 likes on that. This is one of my favorite Mercedes moment tweets. So other people agree. It was funny as hell. Uh, Her character is kind of devolving into madness, which is fun. Um, so we'll follow that closely. She did win the match against Lila Gray. I think that her losing to Red Velvet, but still having all these other belts and the TBS belt, um, I think we're going to get some of the greatest Mercedes Moné matches that we've gotten in a lot, ever. And I believe that because the crowd will now believe she can lose to any credible challenger.
Mhm.
And so I think that these matches are going to have the quality she's had over the last year plus, but I think that the crowd is going to be ever so much behind the baby faces now, starting
Yep.
with Rio in Rev Pro, which is maybe the last match left on the calendar that I would bet could land in a top 10 if it delivers what it could deliver. I think it's got top 10 match of the year type ability there. Um, if it delivers, it could end up being her best indie match. Rio is very very good in the ring. There's going to be uh, this is going to be a physical match. I think it could be very good. So I'm excited for that. That's next Saturday.
Yeah. I think the only thing with the Mercedes Moné crash out story, which is coming, and I think she's going to be really good because she's great at these type of, she's at her best, the crash out heel, right? The I hate everybody, you guys just like she's going to be great at it. I wonder though, will they be able to pull off the full turn, which is her storyline is obviously she can't win the big AEW title, right? That's her story, one of her stories. So she loses
Right.
all these belts, or the important belts, as you say, AEW title, CML title, Rev Pro, and then she's already lost Ring of Honor. Is she going to get the crowd behind her as a baby face Mercedes Moné to win the big title? Because to me, if I were to put money on it, I would put no. I don't think she can get the crowd behind her, that AEW crowd as a baby face, because there's nothing other than her fans that go to these events that chant CEO, like the fans who listen to our show. You and I are obviously her fans, and we've gone to shows of hers and we cheer for her. But I don't see like a groundswell of AEW fans saying, "Yeah, it's about time she gets her moment." Can they
Yeah.
can they tell a creative enough story to make her become the darling baby face? Like when Chris won the title and they chanted, "I was in the building, you deserve it." Is that going to be something they can get the character of Mercedes Moné? Can they do that in AEW?
I mean, that's a whole episode's worth of content. What I'll say right now, and I will give credit to our friend on Twitter, uh, reads like Savant, right? SAVNT, huge
Mm-hmm.
member of the crew. He tweeted this last night. I think he's got the vision because this is the way that I could see it happening. She's got to win the belt from Megan Bayne. She's got to win the belt from Megan Bayne after Megan Bayne's beat the crap out of the division. And I'd take it further. I would have Megan Bayne beat the crap out of her. And it's her superpower. The same way that she got a arena full of TVs, an arena full of TVs to where she was able to turn mid-match by just letting Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax brutalize her in that tag match is the same way. I think Megan takes the belt from Chris, and I don't think you have Mercedes win the Owen or anything like that. I think you have Megan. I don't think you have Mercedes win the belt at All In. I just don't think that that's the moment. I think you have Mercedes win the belt at a pay per view, either in Boston or LA or somewhere like that, where she's going to get a crowd that's generally been behind her. But I would have actually maybe have her lose a match or two to Megan Bayne, where Megan just, as she's been doing with most of the roster, brutalizes her. But nobody can get a crowd feeling more uncomfortable without blood and without, we don't need table bumps. Nobody can make regular classic wrestling bumps make a crowd feel more uncomfortable by spamming them over and over again than Mercedes can when the match is laid out that way. We've tweeted each other after a Nia Jax match or message each other, man, I hope Mercedes is actually okay. You know what I mean? Like, because she can make you feel that way. And
So
that's how she's going to get the crowd on her side.
I think one of the most sliding door moments of the last 5 years of women's wrestling is the golden role models for every data point I've ever seen were a huge deal on television. Like they drew a lot of people into their story, right?
Yeah.
But the advantage they had, in my opinion, is they never had a live crowd. And why do I say that's an advantage? If they were doing that shtick in front of a weekly audience, the way WWE audience was then, I think they would have got over as baby faces. And I think the crowd would have started to turn on all the baby faces, the Alexas, the Nikki Cross, all the people they were feuding with at points. I think the crowd would have turned on them and cheered Bayley and Sasha. And I think the WWE would have never let that story get to where it got if there was a live crowd, because that's what they do with everybody, right? Like they don't
Agree.
let it. So where I'm going with the Shayna thing, because you brought up a really good point about how she kind of turned babyface. No, she didn't kind of. She did turn babyface mid match, and then she got laid out by Bayley, and obviously with the number her and Bayley drew on the SmackDown title rematch, they clearly had people invested in their feud. Where I'm going is, I know that Sasha Banks, the character, was always going to be cheered by a WWE crowd when she turned babyface, because they always have cheered for Sasha Banks, even when she was a heel. What I'm saying is, this specific AEW, not the AEW casual fan like Billie or Raja or the fans that we follow who go to see her specifically, but the guys in the back of her when she had the headset on, that, as you pointed out to me, because I didn't listen with sound before we started recording, where they were chanting, "You can't wrestle." That group, is that group going to then allow this story to be told where they get behind her as a babyface? No matter how good she is in the ring, these folks seem ignorant and don't want to care. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and we'll
Mm.
we'll table this for a later episode. But what I'll say is it's on her to tell that story. Just like you just said, the crowd would have cheered for her as a golden role model. I think she's going to tell this crash out in such a way where even last night, where I think people are going to be so entertained by it that they're going to be more open to cheering for. Number two, it's up to Tony as a booker. She just can't win the title in front of a Columbus, Ohio crowd. You know what I mean? She's going to have to win the title in Orlando or Los Angeles or
Boston.
um, Boston. Even a Chicago crowd that starts out against her, if she bumps her through a match, those bigger crowds respond to those sorts of things. I would say Boston, Orlando, or Los Angeles would be how I would go about it. I also think you'll have her off TV for a month or two before they try to start telling that
I,
story. And with everything, absence does make the heart grow fonder.
I know she's talented enough for sure to pull it off. I just, like I said, when I have sat in these crowds watching her, I got the full AEW experience in two shows. I got one with you in El Paso, where the crowd was into that whole thing from the very beginning of the
They
night,
loved
right?
her in
Like
El Paso,
they
yeah.
love her, and they loved, no, they loved her, and they loved Tony Storm. They loved their face off. There were signs for both. Like, both women felt like that night, if somebody told me Rhea Ripley's the biggest women's star in the world, and then Tony Storm and Mercedes are the number two and number three, I could have believed you that night based on how over those two women were in front of us. And then I got the Toronto experience, which was, I could have done my homework when I was in business school in that crowd, because Mercedes and Rio got no reaction, to the point where friends who I went with were like, "Hey, I really like her. Why are they not like caring about this?" So
Even
I get,
the four way though got no reaction until the surprise
until she
win.
won,
Yeah.
until Chris won, right? And so, but again, I don't expect and I mean this respectfully, like the four women in the four way, I don't look at them as like super duper stars that have a following that follows them to all these places, right? Whereas with Mercedes, she has proven, hey, Ring of Honor, people will go and see her at Ring of Honor. People will go see her at House of Glory or Rev Pro. And in a Toronto crowd, remember, this is a Toronto city that she made her famous blue hair return, and turned the crowd against Becky Lynch, against Natalia, who is from Canada. And when she was stopping hitting Becky with the chair, they booed because they wanted to see her keep doing it. And they
Right.
cheered her, right? So it's not that the the person can't get over in Toronto because I have seen the person over in Toronto. But for whatever reason, this AEW fan base in certain markets just don't play along the way, like you always say, how a WWE crowd plays the game like they're supposed to. I sometimes think that I worry about her
I,
as a babyface because will they play along?
yeah, no, it's a very well-founded point. I think the best thing about watching WWE TV right now, for as much as we complain about like the decisions they make as a company, there's very little misogyny coming from the fans in any WWE shows the last 2 or 3 years. Um, AEW shows have people who are overtly anti-women, and Mercedes seems to get the loudest of that. And there's a little bit of a race thing in there too. And we've seen that both firsthand. And so it is going to be difficult. And it's really on Tony to figure it out, because for him to have the company that he claims he wants to have, because certainly they see women as equals in that office, right? They've put the
Mm-hmm.
women in big spots. Athena, is unquestionably the most main event person on Ring of Honor, and main events over Bandito even. And so it's like, um it is a part of that crowd that does hurt the matches sometimes.
You know what's fascinating to me is like obviously John Moxley used to be Dean Ambrose in WWE, and you know a lot of people have forgotten that he was Dean Ambrose, and they are kind of like he's John Moxley now. Like they don't hold Dean Ambrose against him in AEW, right? He's an AEW person, he's an
Right.
AEW lifer. Everything that Mercedes Vernado, the real life person, has done in front of a camera, behind a microphone, in interviews is I that Sasha Banks thing is in my rear view mirror. I am Mercedes Moné. I love AEW. Tony Khan is the best boss I've ever had. I love the women in this locker room. I want to grow this division. I want to be here. I have no intention. She made, that stupid one interview she did where the where she was almost tongue in cheek saying, "Well, of course I'm going to go back because everybody goes back, right? Because that's the running joke. Like everybody goes. Punk went back, and Jericho's probably going to go back, and Cody went back, and Moxley, I don't think will go back, but a lot of people go back, and everybody makes
They're
that
stuck
joke.
on one line versus
Yeah,
hundreds of
but
interviews that
her
she's
her
given.
her the data she has put in front of me. I am the person who probably of the two of us, like, and again, I'm probably like a 1%er, and maybe you're a 0.5%er, which is there's 1% of me that would love to see her go back to WWE, right? Like 1%. But the 99% of me is completely happy, content, excited about the journey she has taken us on with AEW. And you're probably like maybe a 0.05%. Like, yeah, there's a part
Going
of
to
you that would
support her
love
if
to
that's what
see
she wants to do. Yeah.
that would be you'd be love to see a Rhea her feud or her feud with Roxanne or whatever. But the truth is, I think happiness is something that you can't put a price tag on. And I mean this like, and I'm just talking about even in my personal life, like she seems as happy as I have ever seen her in her wrestling career from what I see on television. Like just I don't know her. I'm not friends with her, but she never seemed this happy in the whole time she was Sasha Banks.
Right.
And so for
Uh,
me, I just don't understand why the AEW hardcore fans, and again, if you are a hardcore AEW fan, please tell Billie or myself why. But I'm curious on why they haven't fully wrapped their arms around her because all she's ever done is wrap her arms around them.
yeah, I think the Moxley comparison is a great one. And that maybe might be why Tony is like, I think once people know you've signed, because let's call it for what it is right now. She will never be AEW champion at this point unless she signs a second contract.
Yeah.
She's got little enough time remaining on her contract that I don't think Tony would do it unless he knows she's staying, right? So, um, for another couple of years. And maybe once this group of fans realizes, like Moxley, that she's not just here for one contract and gone, that will soften that up a little bit. So I think Tony's going to have to be smart with the way that he goes about presenting her as a face, and they got to lean much more into the this is where the best wrestle, and that's the greatest female wrestler of all time, because that appeals to the AEW hardcore fans' ego, which if they wanted her to be face, I think they would have been appealing to the whole time. That AEW hardcore wants to be able to say to people, I watch AEW because the best wrestlers wrestle there. Well, if the company's telling you that there's one greatest female wrestler of all time and she wrestles here, the eggheads chanting "You can't wrestle" are going to get booed out by everyone else, because everyone else is going to say, we have a legend wrestling here. But speaking of legends, from a Ring of Honor perspective, the greatest Ring of Honor women's wrestler of all time, by probably 3 years worth of laps, is Athena. She had another really, really great match with Persephone to main event final battle. I thought it was a really good match, really, really physical. Persephone is a hugely talented woman. I loved her match against Mercedes. I really loved this match. What it was lacking for me, I actually think wrestling wise, it might have been better than Red Velvet Mercedes. Like, they did a lot of cool shit. Um, it was missing the heel face dynamics that Persephone and Mercedes had in CMLL. Um, I don't think the crowd knew who to boo in this match. They liked both of them. And so they basically just popped for spots, right? And you could have a good match popping for spots, but I think that was the one thing. Like, this could have been a top 10 match of the year if there was a heel face dynamic, because the actual physicality was really, really good. But I don't know that the crowd even knew, like, do you want Athena to lose? No, she's ours. But like Persephone kind of wrestled babyface-ish, right? So, that's my only nitpick on an otherwise match.
I looked at this match the way a lot of people, and maybe myself, after I reviewed it multiple times, looked at Io versus Mayu. And it's the same thing,
Yeah.
which is the two women are very good as wrestlers against each other. They know how to do moves with each other. They know how to do spots with each other. They do, as you said, cool stuff. When I watched Io Mayu, it was more of an exhibition of their greatness.
Yeah.
In a lower degree, this was that, because I'm never gonna, and I'm biased here,
Yeah.
so call me out on it. But I'm never gonna put Athena and Persephone in an Io Mayu category for me. But it's the same concept, which is I don't really know who I'm cheering for. I really don't care who wins or who loses. I just thought it was really entertaining for the minutes they gave me. And like Mercedes, it's like Persephone and Athena, sorry, was not a dream match for me. So I wasn't like, oh my God, I gotta watch this thing. But when I did watch it, I was like, wow, this is a pretty good match. Like, these two are really working. But again, they are working to accomplish, I guess, for the Ring of Honor title. And it was just a match to me. But again, that's because Athena has really been a heel. And I don't think Persephone is established enough as a babyface with an American audience. So I think this match would have been phenomenal in Mexico. Like, I think if Athena put the Ring of Honor title in Mexico and they had this exact same match with the heat they could have gotten, I think the match would have been one of the better matches this year. But because it
Yeah.
lacked that heat element, like Mayu, and I'm gonna have Mayu Io on my list, but like, my point is, it's what I saw of it's what people said about that match, I say about this match. Same thing.
Yeah. So,
Oh. Go ahead.
Yeah, the 3-year reign is working against Athena at this point. If they had this match 6 months into her reign, when it's like she could lose at any time, it might have been one of the best matches. Um, Based on Persephone not being a Ring of Honor long-term storyline, rostered person. I just don't know that everyone believed Persephone would win this match. Therefore, it takes it down a little bit because uh, there's not enough emotion in the story of Persephone beating her to be worth ending such a legendary run. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I don't think we'll ever beat this Ring of Honor run in Ring of Honor because it's just like I think Tony's going to try to grow Ring of Honor into a thing where it has more TV time and more exposure at some point. You're just not going to have a champion for 3 years. You're just not going to do it. It's such an investment. And I think Athena did a great job when there were darker times, kind of bringing some light to Ring of Honor by them being able to say, we've got this longest running women's champion putting on all these great matches. But if Ring of Honor grows into what they, I'm sure, want it to be, you'd never put a belt on someone for 3 years. So this is going to be the
No.
longest reigning champion. She's got to lose to someone like Billie or someone she's going to have a story with. Like she has to.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree, and I think that's the biggest problem with her title reign in Ring of Honor. It's so what? Like at least with Mercedes having the long reign with the TBS title, I always knew what the end game was, which is A, she can't win the big one, and B, she's gonna accumulate all these assets, and she's gonna lose all of them. And I always knew that that was the story. It's how they tell it that will be the whether it's a success or failure. With Athena, I just never knew what the direction was. Okay, is she trying to be the fabulous Moolah and hold the belt until she retires? Like Athena doesn't. Again, I'm not. I'm trying to be fair and honest. I don't want to lie to people. Like Athena is a really good professional wrestler, no question. I just don't think the minion thing. Like again, if Billie Starks already beat her, I think mission accomplished. Like that was the
Most people
story.
thought she was going to beat her at Final Battle last year, and then she didn't.
Right. But Athena keeps winning these matches that I think she should lose because I think it's time for Athena to move on to the main roster of AEW and start challenging for a title, not in as Ring of Honor champion. Like Athena needs to like have AEW feuds. But again, this was a really good. I mean, Persephone's a really good wrestler, man, and I'm glad to see that Tony has locked her up in some shape or form with the CMLL partnership because I don't think I don't want to compare people, but like I understand why Stephanie became Stephanie Vacour, but I think Persephone can become something to that degree if they just push her correctly. And I like the direction they're going with her. I just don't think her losing all these big matches is a great sign. But I thought
I
Ring
think
of
she's
Honor, yeah,
yeah, she's certainly going to be the one to win the CMLL title from Mercedes. I think at this point,
that's what everybody says.
yeah, Billie Starks. We got one more match I want to cover there. Um, I was not super duper familiar with Pure Rules until this match. It's the most I ever paid attention. Couple thoughts. Knowing the rules now totally makes sense that Deonna Purrazzo is the first champion. That totally tracks. Number two, I do want, I do really wish that Natty Neihart had left WWE because putting her in pure rules competition is like to me like the highest level of like that's perfect for her. I'd love to see Shayna wrestle in this type of match, and it's not going to happen now because I don't think Mercedes. And maybe they want to tell Mercedes is trying to replace other belts, and you have her wrestle Deonna and lose. But can you imagine a Mercedes Deonna match under pure rules with the submissions and the mat game? I mean that could be a hell of a match. But um, enjoyed this match. I thought they told a good story. If you don't know pure rules, you only get 3 rope breaks. So Deonna got Billie in various submissions. and then actually let her get the last rope break so that she was out of them. And it was basically like dragging, someone out into deep water and drowning them. And I thought it was a really, really good story that they told with this match.
So I've been a fan of Ring of Honor for a long time, and Ring of Honor Pure Rules for the men. AJ Styles was the first champion. Nigel McGuinness, Bryan Danielson, they've all been champions. And, it's basically we're the wrestlers championship, right? Like that's
Right.
what the whole gimmick is. It's kind of like, it's, as they say, it's like the rappers who rap category. So it's always been a thing. And yes, Deonna Purrazzo is like the perfect champion to have as your first champion. Because if I were to think of Pure Rules women, she's the only one that comes to my mind right now. Like, I'm not saying a Mercedes couldn't be it or Bailey couldn't be it. I'm just, throwing names out there.
Shayna, I think it would be perfect.
Kendall Gray. Like, a lot of people could do it. Marina Shafir, but Deonna Purrazzo, like, she's like the embodiment of the women's pure title. Like, so it had to be her as the first champion. I really like this match. I could make a case at some points this match had me as invested as the other two women's matches on this card. But I knew Deonna was going to win. And I hope that they really push this and make it a thing. And I would love to see women from all over the world. Like, I'd love to see, the woman you guys adore in the crew, Kanji. Like, I think Kanji is like
God, she'd be great. Yeah.
perfect, Deonna Purrazzo, Kanji for the, like, to me, I almost look at Kanji as the obvious successor to the lineage of this belt. So yeah, I look, man, for $10 for the month, and if they're going to give me this on all of their pay-per-views per month, it is a really good investment. Like, because I don't get a Stardom show every month. Well, yeah, I guess I do, but I love what Ring of Honor was. I thought the show was a great representation of women's wrestling, and I thought it did a great job. I loved all three matches, like, for different reasons, but I liked all three. And actually four, because the Layla Zeta Steel match was pretty good too. So yeah, I thought Ring of Honor had a banner night, and it was good to see people talking about it.
Perfect.
And it's good. So I know we're gonna wrap up, but I got two stories that I want to quickly touch on. I was asked to touch on the first one, and I'm going to try to do it in 2 minutes. Netflix bought or is acquiring or trying to acquire for $82 billion Warner Brothers. Everybody wonders, okay, what does this mean for AEW? You watch AEW through HBO Max, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so if you watch AEW on HBO Max, there is a possibility that AEW will not be on HBO Max if this deal goes through and gets approved and everything. Because HBO Max is an entity that Netflix is acquiring because it's streaming and they want it under their umbrella. They are not acquiring the linear TV channels. They are not acquiring CNN, Discovery, TNT, TBS. So if you are an AEW fan and watch it on linear TV, you don't have to worry because it's going to be a standalone company. Now, I know when when Paramount made the offer, they wanted everything. And that scenario, because of Paramount's involvement with TKO and UFC, I would have been very worried about the future of AEW for a temporary time. But under this, it's the HBO Max component that you have to worry about, not the linear TV. But although this deal isn't final, so hey, you never know. Netflix will come back and say, okay, we'll buy everything. Who knows? Because
how
they
possible
have,
is it?
go.
How possible is it that if Tony loses HBO Max streaming, remember he does offer pay-per-view on Amazon Prime, he could probably market the streaming to Prime.
Yeah, he could market it to Prime, and I believe Prime is going to be the home. In my opinion, AEW will be the home on Amazon by the next TV deal. Like they will be the home of AEW. I just think it's
Them
going in
getting
that
to keep,
direction.
yeah, them getting to keep TBS and TNT is good as they figure out where this market lands with all the changing. But the reason they wouldn't have been on Amazon before is because Amazon and HBO Prime would have been seen as competitors, and they had to basically HBO Max was the only place they could have shopped it to.
Mm-hmm.
Technically speaking, once this deal goes through, they could shop their streaming rights to Paramount. They won't because of the TKO thing, but they could, and
Mm-hmm.
they could shop it to Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I have another wild idea for AEW. What if they just go to Tubi? Everybody talks about Evolve. Evolve's not doing anything on Tubi. So like Tubi's an
How big is Tubi?
option.
I don't even know.
It's the third biggest streaming platform after I think Netflix, and I can't remember what number two is. Probably you, or the other option is
YouTube TV.
YouTube TV, right? You just go to YouTube TV and you say, look, we are your exclusive, you are our exclusive distributor, and we just go on the YouTube TV channel and you show all the events. But for those of you who do watch AEW on HBO Max, there is going to be some murky waters coming because I just don't see a world where Netflix has paid $5 billion to WWE and now they're going to have to put capital into AEW. You know, there's a bigger likelihood, and Tony will never sell, so that's not an option. So I just wanted to touch on that, and I will research it a little bit more because it's still really fresh, and there are some deal points that I haven't gotten a chance to read over. I'm here in Toronto, on a semi-vacation, so I'll research it, and we'll talk more about it next week. And then the other thing we want to close on, which is a very positive note, is one of our favorites on the show, Bailey. Probably one of the other reasons this podcast exists. If Mercedes is 1A, Bailey is probably 1B. She did something called Lodestone, which is basically the definition is iron sharpens iron, where she picked 25 women from all over the world, and she is kind of hosting a seminar about the ins and outs of women's wrestling, how to get in the business, how to be big in the business, promo class, tape study, in-ring work, drills, and had some of the biggest stars in the world attend. Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Natalia Neidhart, Lyra. I think somebody else I'm missing. Who else attended?
Charlotte Flair.
Charlotte Flair, of course. But they also had John Cena attend. And John Cena spent 8 hours with these women and watched apparently 10 matches. So, kudos to Bailey for getting her dream pet project off the ground. Obviously, this is going to be an annual thing, and obviously more women are going to covet to attend this thing. And I mean, I'm sure Roman Reigns will show up next year, and Cody Rhodes will show up the year after. And I'm saying that because I think everybody needs to take a step back and look at the tea leaves of this and understand that the intentions are pure and it's done for the right things, but there is a hidden agenda being worked by Bailey's employer in this. And
Not by Bailey, but by her employer.
Yeah, by her employer. I think her employer is saying, hey, look, we know your contract is up, and there's a lot of discussion on the internet about you leaving us. We're gonna, you want to let me show you how we believe in you. You want to do this thing? Cool. You want to pay for it? Cool. But we will help you. We will give our talent to you. We will allow them to come because, again, and I'm not trying to criticize. I'm just being honest.
It's not. Yeah, it's
all of WWE talent have to get permission to attend anything like this. They can't show up where there are photo ops and videotape without permission. So if you look at the list of the people who showed up to this event, they all have one commonality. They all work for the WWE.
Yep.
but it's a great thing she's doing, and she deserves all the praise in the world. And I don't know if there's a better human in the wrestling business than Bayley.
Agreed. Her intentions are pure. Um, it was her idea. I think the idea sparked without any backing from WWE. I think it's her own idea, and WWE just kind of said, "Hey, we'll help you do this since it's important to you." And a good example is Friday, right? You got all these women's independent wrestlers who are together, and they posted about how they were watching SmackDown. And if you watch all their stories, they watched SmackDown and they were so proud of Bayley and all that. But um, a lot of these women have worked with, trained with, wrestled under uh, a lot of the women who were performing at the Ring of Honor show. And you got all these kind of wrestling heads together. And the point we're making is there was no mention of anything outside of like the TNA WWE universe. And I think that that's because what turned into an independent thing that Bayley was doing got enough support from WWE that they had to follow a level of rules about it that maybe was not originally there. And Cena showing up, I think, certainly um, solidifies that. What's great about that is that Bayley's got a little bit of the machine behind her to support her in this going forward. And hopefully she's not paying for all of it out of pocket, because WWE is well rich enough to invest
Mm-hmm.
in Bayley and invest in these women to help them be kind of more ready going forward. So it is a very, very good thing. And it's change that she's created. I just think that she has a bigger party financially interested in it than what her initial intention was.
Yeah, and I think a name that we need to talk more about on this podcast is and I missed the boat. You had the list. It was your top five women who haven't won a world title. I think I just saw the WrestleMania 2031 main event for the women on Instagram, which is I saw a picture of Nikki Blackheart, and on her left side was Bianca Belair, and on her right side was Rhea Ripley. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is their main event. Like, this is their dream match. Like, their mouths must be watering
Yeah,
to have
Nikki
these three.
Blackheart.
She should have been on my list. I missed the boat there.
Nikki Blackheart is, she's an indie wrestler, raw, a little bit raw, but has the look in spades, strength, power. Bayley took a liking to her from the Who Runs the World 2 show that she attended, and Nikki had a match there. So um, I think all these women have a leg up, at least on visibility, getting into WWE after this Lodestone event. I don't know if it'll be annual, biannual, whatever it might be, but God, I'd almost bet Nikki Blackheart being signed on the next round of signees. Would you say it'll happen that quick? I do.
I do. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I noticed that in her Instagram pages, all her pictures are with Bianca, Rhea, Natty, Lyra,
yeah.
Roxanne. Like,
So
there's like a symbolism there.
yeah, so props to Bayley. Continues to be one of the most important pioneers in women's wrestling, and not just through lip service, but through works.
Mm-hmm.
In helping all these young women, and kudos to her for getting a bigger pocketbook hopefully involved, because she shouldn't have to pay for this out of pocket, even though she was more than willing to. Um, it's an investment in wrestling's future. Um, for me, my closing thoughts, I do want to add this Lodestone thing being a really, really exciting thing that I think is going to help the pipeline for indie wrestlers. On the other side,
Yo, what's up?
Oops.
Tony Khan has signed Lena Kross. He signed Lacey Lane. He's all but signed Zeta Steel. And for those who missed it on Collision, Hyan and Maya World, who we've been advocating to get signed for a very, very long time, were part of a locker room brawl uh, where the Triangle of Madness was beating up the baby faces. Matching gear, new matching gear, and back there as part of the locker room. So Mr. Tony Khan seems to be investing in the depth of his women's division, and we got some really exciting stuff coming with that. I mean, I think Maya
Yeah.
World is is the best, young prospect out there. Um, Interestingly enough, she tweeted that she wanted to be part of this camp that Bailey put on. I would imagine she wasn't part of it for one of two reasons, or maybe both. Maybe Bailey thought she was too far along and already more than ready to be
Mhm.
well on her way. And number two, if she's signed with AEW, it probably takes her off consideration for this. So, for whatever the reason may be, really happy to see Maya and Hyan on AEW TV again. Lena Kross, it was confirmed by, was it Mike Johnson confirmed that she signed?
Mhm.
We haven't gotten the Is All Elite thing yet, but um, that's a big signing. And Tony had a lot of nice things to say about Zeta Steele after her appearing on an ROH show. So I would presume she's close too.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think we have a lot to look forward to in women's wrestling. I think Tony's done a great job of getting depth pieces for his roster. You know, WWE, TKO, whatever you want to call the entity, has enough depth to, fill three promotions. So I think the world of women's wrestling, and we haven't talked about Stardom or CMLL. So the world of women's wrestling is in a really good place. There's so much talent out there. I mean, I think, the number one women's wrestler who doesn't wrestle in one of the big companies is probably Saya. And, I don't even know what kind of money it's going to take to get her to come out of Japan.
Yeah.
Probably, she's probably going to get like three times the money Stephanie Vacour got because, she's not even looking to leave Japan. So if they get her to leave Japan, it's going to be a lot of money. And I don't know why Tony isn't parked outside of her front house trying to figure
Or
out her way to
Saray
get her.
too, right?
Yeah, but with Saray, she's been in an American promotion and it didn't work for her, not because of her, because of the promotion. So I wonder if she's like, yeah, I like this kind of independent thing I'm doing. But with Saya, I mean, if Saya comes, let's just say Saya signed to AEW, that could be what Okada should have been for AEW men.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. And so, I think I said the last thing already, but the depth of the AEW women's division, and we kind of mentioned it, but we are going to have the first ever women's tag team champions crowned on Wednesday. Winter is coming.
Yep.
It'll either be Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale, or Tony Storm and Mina Shirakawa. Um, I think the depth is so. Tony has a tag division that has teams and has teams vying for it, which could only mean more TV time for the women. Um, I will be, and you will be, as hypercritical of him as we've been of WWE over the years if these tag belts don't get
Yep.
defended on pay-per-views. So excited to see what gets done with it once the new champions are crowned. The tournament hasn't been everything we wanted, but once the titles are there, we should get these matches.
I agree. And I'm looking forward to it. And I think Willow and Harley will win the belt. So on that note, we kind of went long this week, but we hope you guys enjoy it. There was a lot to cover. We will be back next week, and we don't know if it's going to be next week or the week after, but coming soon will be our end of the year recap where we give you multiple top five lists, right? So we didn't do the top five this week for a specific reason because an episode is coming where you're going to get our top five wrestlers, our top five matches, our top five segments of the year in
Breakout
women's wrestling,
performers, yeah.
breakout performers. So you're going to get like an end of the year balance sheet award show, which we're obviously looking forward to. And we don't know if that's going to be next week. I know you have some personal commitments next week to travel. So it might be
We'll
the
say
week
2 weeks.
after
We'll do
2 weeks.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll do it in 2 weeks. And we'll talk to you guys then. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.